We begin with workers' affairs, where issues facing workers in Kenya seem to be endless, even as trade unions continue to engage with governments. But just what is the lasting solution? Our very own Victoria Munga has a one-on-one interview with KOTU Secretary General Francis Atwoli. Good afternoon, Munga.
A very good afternoon to you, Kazungu. Just right as you put it, we are live from the Stanley Hotel, where the Federation of the Trade Union in Eastern Africa is going down. This is the second day of this conference, and now I'm joined by the KOTU Secretary General Francis Atwoli on live here from the Stanley Hotel. Thank you very much, sir, for making time.
Thank you very much, sister. And let me first and foremost take this opportunity to thank Ebru Africa to have been part of our ongoing conference, of which we started yesterday. Here we have 14 Eastern African countries represented, right away from Madagascar to Eritrea, to look into issues that are very close to us as labor leaders in this region, and also to re-examine our work as if we are still relevant or irrelevant, and then we adjust ourselves. And lastly, to compare experiences as far as strengthening labor movement in the Eastern Africa is concerned.
All right. Katibu, what's your expectation from this conference that is going down here in Nairobi?
Absolutely, to strengthen trade union movement in the region. That is from Madagascar, as I say, to Eritrea, 14 Eastern African countries, to make sure that, as we normally say, an injury to one is an injury to all. So we don't want to see or to hear any part of our center in this region is weak, or it has management or governance issues. So that is why we are here, to make sure that we move towards one direction as a strong entity in the larger Trade Union Federation of Eastern Africa, and whose headquarters are in Khartoum, Sudan, and make sure that it supplements to the African, to Organization of the African Trade Union Unity that I lead as a president also in Africa, and also to channel it out up to International Labour Organization, to make sure that some of the conventions and recommendations that are being made there are of value to us in this sub-region, and what will be our future entry point for the purposes of strengthening labor movement, relating it to tripartism arrangement. Through tripartism arrangement, we have employers, we have governments, and workers working together. Where are we weak? That is why we are here. Our government strong, or are they weak? Our employers, are they strong or are weak? Or the policies that spur economic growth for the purposes of creating employment in the region, are they relevant to us? Are we properly represented politically in both other institutions and arms of government? One, in the three arms of government, one is Parliament. Are we adequately represented? Are workers' issues being pursued to the latter in the August House? And eventually after that, what are being legislated for the purposes of making sure that workers are properly protected in the region?
Yes, sir. From where you sit, narrowing down to Kenya, you talked about issues that are affecting the workers. Where is Kenya right now in terms of the rights of workers?
Kenya, actually, we have had a lot of problems as far as workers' issues are concerned, and we have been asking the government to revamp and support the Ministry of Labour to be strong, to have more labour officers, and whom we can draw up labour inspectors, occupational health and safety department being strengthened, and also factory inspectors, so that our workers are properly inspected. Labor inspectors are of very great use because they deter what we call exploitation of labor and unfair labor, application of unfair labor practices. And that is why we are saying our labor ministry must have a bigger say, a bigger budget, because it is, after foreign affairs ministry, it is also foreign affairs nature by its placement in an area of representing the country at the International Labour Organization and also in the African Union Labour and Social Affairs Commission in Addis Ababa. So Kenya, we must always knock on their door and tell them to be more stronger than where we are today by making sure that working men and women in this country are properly protected and they are not exploited. We have a lot of dubious and unscrupulous employers who have introduced outsourcing. The purpose of outsourcing on an enterprise is to exploit, is to underpay. And that is why we are saying if we had a strong labor commissioner and strong labor inspectors, such people can be arrested and be prosecuted for applying unfair labor practices.
A lot of conferences happen with good intentions and all that. So then what next after this conference? Do we just still remain in the same position?
No. We normally get resolutions out of such conferences. Some of that we'll share with our governments and some that we'll share with our employers. In our tripartite arrangements, and some that we will pursue direct up to the ILO level. So these are very important conferences, and they also make us adjust the way we can be able to govern our organizations. They mold us, they make us more stronger and reflect on what we want. Things that affect human beings like climate change, we tackle them. Things that affect us like poor legislation, we tackle them here. Things that make employers have leeway of applying unfair labor practices through exploitation, we handle them here. Things that negates the governance, particularly when it comes to creating employment for our young men and women who are leaving the institutions of high learning, bearing in mind that globally 80% of workers are women and youth. How do we address this issue? And us as a trade union, how do we embody them into labor movement and make sure that we are strong, we can be able to confront any government? These meetings are very, very important. And as I told you from the beginning, the most important part of any leadership is to share experiences. And then you benchmark, you say, are we ahead or we are behind, so that you can move towards, you can all the time remain relevant. Because if you can recall, I took over Code 2002. And up to now, it is not the same court, it's very strong. And if I sat down on my laurels and say we are okay because we are a force to reckon with in the region, and then we relax, we will be out of place. We need to continue exerting our pressure. We need to continue building our capacities. We need to continue also looking into the areas of our structures. And we need to continue comparing us to what is happening in the government. Because if we have a weak parliament, it will produce a weak government. If we have a weak government, we will have no people to assist the president and strengthen the arms of government, provide security, food, and those other pillars like housing that the president stands for. All of those four pillars the president wants to leave as a legacy are concerns of workers. They are drawn out of the workers' struggle. How do we get there? What will be our share? And we can only do so if we compare ourselves with other colleagues.
And sir, I cannot let you go without you talking about this. This is happening at a time when we've seen big, I would say, leaders in various capacities being arrested and taken to court over matters corruption. Is this the right direction or a step to the right direction in terms of fighting corruption in the country from where you sit?
In fact, we delayed. This is what President Uhuru would have started with in his first term, but because he was timing himself, didn't want to lose a lot of his friends, as he said recently. But where he is where we wanted him to be, long time ago. Because there is no any investor who would like to invest in a country that is crippled with corruption and a lot of malpractices. You know, buildings can be put anywhere where people get away with impunity. You know, imagine somebody, this is a public land, it's a government land. You want to carry out development on that particular land. It is converted into some people's names and then it is bought by the same government. Such a person is not even fit to take him to court. If it is the countries like China or some other places, such a person should be taken to Gado straight away and be taken to Kamkunji for Wananchi to deal with him. These are open blundering of public funds and public utilities, and even those who have built, leave alone this issue of riparian. We have people who have literally, with impunity, put a lot of huge buildings on public land. This land should be regained. We have schools, we have other facilities like dispensaries, hospitals, and also infrastructure. If we have such people who don't care about it, and Nairobi is an international city, it needs to be compared. It should not be a seat of slums, seat of kiosks, seat of unplanned buildings. So the demolitions that are going on, we support it, and we support the president. The arrests which are going on are not enough, because in our midst we have a list of more than 1,000 corrupt people who have not yet been arrested, and we are prepared to share with the government where we have evidence. Workers have every evidence to provide to the government, to provide to those people who are in charge, so that we can get those people who are supposed to be in jail taken to where they belong. And this would be a right country. We need to leave a very clean country to our young men and women, our children. They need to inherit a country that respects a rule of law, a country that is not of impunity, a country that you must not corrupt so as to get employment, a country that you must not come from this tribe or that tribe to be considered, a country that is a country that unifies Kenyans, a country that can move ahead and develop without, and even attract both direct and indirect investment without corruption.
And lastly, sir, we've seen these demolitions going on, but then these are investors who at some point got a green light to build.
Don't agitate me, because an investor who got a line through corruption, he corrupted somebody to build in a place where he was not supposed to build. He's as well as that thief, and particularly the person who was approved. We don't support that. How do you know this is a road reserve? This is a public land. It was a government land. You put there building. It doesn't help, even if it takes, let me tell you, the wheels of justice, and I said this 2014, the wheels of justice grind slow, but it doesn't matter how long, eventually they will roll over you. So don't do something that even 10, 20 years, it will haunt you. This is what I tell people even on the boards where I sit, that let us be sincere, specific, and honest to ourselves, so that we are not followed after what we are doing. I tell them in my executive, I tell those where I sit, that let us try to exercise fairness. You see, some of us, we have been working for more than 51 years. We don't own a hotel like this. Why? Because we depend on our income, and what we have, we can be able to account for. So nobody should come and brag, say, oh, me, I have this and that, and simply, he was born when we were working. The life audit must be carried out and know, yes, how did you achieve this? How did you get this? And what brains do you have that others don't have? When you are given an opportunity, it's not your opportunity to serve the nation. It's not to use that opportunity to steal and grab.
Thank you so much, sir, for your time. Okay. Francis Atwoli, the Co-2 Secretary General, speaking to us here at Up to Date at 1. I'm Victoria Munga. Thanks for watching.
Victoria Munga, they are speaking to Co-2 Secretary General Francis Atwoli. A raft of issues have been agreed there. Of course, we've seen